Drop everything and clear those ears. It's time for the Dave and Dave Show.
Dave the Rave, Dave man. Merry Christmas, my friend.
Merry Christmas to you and yours. I know you're with some family, and you must be enjoying that immensely. There's also a rumor that you're not in your usual location. That's true.
3,000 miles away on the left coast. Yeah. A little frosty here, a little frosty in the northwest, but, we can pick winners in the wintertime just as good as we can with the sand between our toes. So,
all right. Well, I heard a little bit of whining and complaining about that cold weather, kind of from beyond the Rockies.
You get used to, moving that sand around, like you say, fixing the beach and remodeling the beach, it takes the system a couple of days, just a little bit.
Well, it's cold here in Jersey.
Looks cold, Dave. We look ready.
Out for a walk this morning. It was 16 degrees.
What do you got on your sweatshirt there? What team is this for?
This is a Jacob Blake. I believe it's in Utah, actually, but my sister gave it to me.
That's a minor vibe because, I'll talk about Utah in a second.
Oh, well, no, I forget Utah. I'm getting ready to talk about Arizona State. All right. So giving myself away there. And
let's start with kickball. How you doing there across the pond there, laddie?
Oklahoma already scored. Like seconds into the game, they scored against Navy. All right.
A midshipman, just,
a quick look at what we did last week. Let's see. Yeah, kickball last week, we tried to do a little, not really carpet bombing, but I had 3 different plays. Only hit one of them, but it was the Aston Villa against Man City, and that was a plus 225. So, bet $100 on every game, showing a very minuscule profit, but I guess it's as good as, putting it in the bank.
Doing better.
A little bit better. The other 2 didn't come in. Boy, Crystal Palace, maybe they should have, but anyway, they didn't. No, actually, that's wrong. That's wrong. But Aston Villa beat Man City, who are total mess. Total mess. It's unbelievable how bad things are going there right now.
Manchester's got to be singing the blues. Both of their teams are struggling.
Yeah, and right. It's like a known quantity that Man U's been down for a number of years now, but now Man City is joining them. And it really is amazing. We talked about it a week or 2 ago with their, really one of their star players being out since the beginning of the year, and it has made a huge difference. I'm only looking at one this week. It's a little weird because everybody played yesterday on Boxing Day in the UK. Right. Just about everybody played. So they don't have them come right back and play again, even on Saturday. They've got a few games scheduled for Sunday, and it's one game that I'm looking at, and it's Crystal Palace at home against Southampton. Southampton's on the bottom of the table. They're going back to the Championship League. I mean, they're not sticking around up here. They've generated very few points from their 18 or so games that they played this year. They're on the road here. They have scored 4 goals in 9 road games. 4. Okay. Now, Crystal Palace, on the other hand, they got it together a little bit. They're playing, very poorly at the beginning of the year. Got it together a little bit, but still, they're really having a hard time putting the ball in the net. They have 7 goals in 9 home games. So I'm looking at the under here, under 2.5 plus 105. Nobody's getting rich on it. It's not a huge price, but under 2.5, I can't see a lot of. This game's got Crystal Palace 1-0 written all over it. So I'm going under 2.5 plus 105. Crystal Palace and Southampton on Sunday.
Now, just a question for maybe not the most knowledgeable soccer fan. What do you think is the reason for the demise of both Man U and Manchester City, which were perennial powers for the last decade?
And Man City has been the best team in the world for the last few years. And, a couple of years ago, they won all 3, which hadn't happened, in forever. or ever.
Right.
Won the FA Cup, they won the Premier League, and they won the Champions League. So,
Impossible to do almost.
yeah. It really, star player down, playmaker.
Yeah.
Who makes things
Money.
go. Everything goes through him.
Right.
At the beginning of the year, and they haven't been the same since. And I mean, like yesterday, they ended up tying Everton. It was towards the bottom of the table. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
A team that is very challenged offensively. Everton, they're the second banana in Liverpool. They always will be, but they have unbelievable fan base and everything. And their games are really fun to watch, especially when they're at home. Yesterday, it was Man U, huge favorite as usual, even with all their recent struggles. And it ended up being a 1-1 tie. Now, towards the end of the game, Man City got a penalty kick, and they had Harling take the penalty kick, and the goalie stopped him. I mean, that's just the way things are going for Man City right now. For Harling to miss on a penalty kick is unbelievable, but it happened, and the guy guessed right, and he made the save. So it's Pickford. He's the national goaltender for England, and
right.
Save. So Everton pulled out the big plus 450 draw against Man City. I think I might know somebody might have had a couple of bucks on that one. But that's it, particularly.
Now.
We got some great college football stuff coming out.
Let's get right to it.
Yeah, and it was hard to. I limited it to four games, but it was really hard to do that.
No doubt.
Anyway,
it's the best time of year, bowl season. A lot more exciting, I think, because of the playoffs. But let's get right to it, Dave Reno.
Yeah, our schedule this week is a little weird because we were thinking about doing it yesterday. But anyway,
true.
Coming to you a little late this week. Do you have anything for any of the games later on tonight? I mean, they already started. This game's already started. I was thinking about maybe giving one out for later tonight in the hopes that we might be able to get this thing on the air before then. Do you have anything for tonight?
I don't, lad. I'm concentrating. I got a few bets in action right now, but I'm concentrating on mañana.
Okay. So for me, and then I went into next week because they're playing Monday, they're playing Tuesday, they're playing Wednesday, and they have some of the really big, playoff games and everything are coming up before we will do this again. So anyway, I'm looking at tonight. I'm looking at the Texas A&M is favored by 3 over USC. Texas A&M has a lot of portal issues and guys going to the draft and this and that. I just think they're missing too many pieces in this game. I think they're getting slammed a little bit too much. I think USC was kind of finding their way towards the end of the season, and I like them. I like them with the 3 points. So I'm taking USC, the Trojans, plus 3 against Texas A&M, and that's tonight.
Yeah, and it seems like the steam is on A&M.
They're getting bet hard. A lot of these games, very one-sided betting, which seems to be working real well in pro football. But college football, it's still you get too many people on one side of a game. You have to start taking a long look at the other guys. I'm still of that opinion. Really, until
no doubt. And there's extra time to prepare for these teams. USC, it's a tough schedule. So
they were saying the game that's on right now with Navy and Oklahoma. Now, of course, Navy doesn't have any defections. They don't have anybody transferring. They don't have a single guy in the transfer pro. They're a military academy team, so they got everybody playing. But maybe here a little bit, coming off the big game with Army and everything, and they played so well. But Oklahoma, they were saying it could be challenged to field the team for this game. They got so many guys hurt in the portal, whatever the hell they're doing. They just don't seem interested. But they came out here, they rolled down the field, scored a touchdown.
That's all right. I think Navy's gonna.
And Navy's moving the ball on. They got it here, but this SC A&M game now, USC is not without missing a couple guys too because there's so much movement in college football now. They got to do something. I know everybody's talking about this during the games, but they got to do something. Otherwise, these games are more meaningless than they may already be because
it's almost impossible to bet. Oh, I don't know who's playing.
Restrict them to going, making the announcement. So I don't know. There's got to be a better way.
Hey. Last minute changes, it affects the line. It affects obviously the opening line. We saw this past week, the line swoons, the heavy betting, especially late. I haven't seen that. I mean, it's +3 for a reason. USC.
You figure should be in the game. They should be in the game. I kind of like the guy that they ended up putting in there playing quarterback. I know they didn't do all that great against Notre Dame, but still, I like some things that I saw. And, I'm really looking at all the guys who are missing the game for A&M, and I don't think they were that great to begin with. So I think they're going to have a little bit of some troubles here tonight. All right. Who do you got first?
Brother, I'm going Saturday, and it's the first game, so you're going to have to wake up early if you're out on the West Coast. It starts at 8 a.m., 11 o'clock Eastern. I'm going with the UConn Huskies. +2.5. It's more against North Carolina than with UConn. UConn, obviously, lower tier program, but I like their program, the Reelding. The Tar Heels are excited for the future, but they better concentrate on what's happening now. They have really no coach to lead them. They're a little bit distracted. They got players leaving in the portal, and
they weren't very good to begin with.
Exactly. They got beat by their hometown rival, who I like, NC State. But it just seems like they're not as prepared. UConn is really focused. Very few people opted out. There's a reason. It's, +2.5 right now at Hard Rock Bet in Miami. And I'm taking the UConn Huskies +2.5.
All right. I just sort of started to look at that game, and then I noticed all the other stuff going on, some of the matchups and whatnot. And so I didn't.
Yeah, it's a little bit under the radar.
Of course, yeah. I would probably going to be gravitating towards UConn in that one.
All right.
It's funny because this is, I guess it's more like several years ago, or maybe even getting close to 20 years ago. But UConn, because of all the money that they generated through the basketball program, they had money for football, and they went from being a 1AA team, and they were ranked at one time. They were in the Big East playing football. There was one season where it was Louisville, Rutgers, and UConn were all in the top 20, but he hadn't been in the top 15. It was crazy. These three teams from the Big East, and some of the other schools weren't really that good that year. Like Miami was in the Big East, I think, at that time. But anyway, UConn was good, and playing big time college football and giving people a run for their money. It really tailed off after a while. The basketball team's still doing well, but the football program tailed off a bit. But this year they had a bit of a resurgence, and I see this as a much bigger deal for them, and yeah, I like that side of this game for sure. All right, moving on. My next game, I believe, is tomorrow, and it's two of the big boys in college football, although this year they both struggled, and that is kind of why I'm leaning towards one side over the other here. I'm looking at the Alabama-Michigan game. I just think that Michigan is taking a better approach of, new coach, win the national championship. Hey, we got to rebuild here. Obviously, they started to figure some things out towards the end of the season. Beating Ohio State the way they did and running the ball like they did in that game. I think that's going to be the recipe for this game, too. Alabama, of course, has a zillion defections and this and that, and guys going pro and whatnot. Not that Michigan doesn't have them, but they have a few. Bama's got more, and it's just a huge spot, 12.5 points. If Alabama plays like they did against Oklahoma, Michigan will win this game. I like the points, and I'm taking Michigan plus 12.5 against Alabama. I just think this game is more of a stepping stone to rebuilding, and Michigan's doing it the right way, and Alabama, I think, is a little bit of a mess. Plus, they're crying about not making the playoffs. Sure. Come on, you lost too many games, period. You just lost too many games. So I don't think they deserve to be in there, and I don't think they're going to show that they belonged in this game. I think this is going to be more a case of an improved Michigan team is going to surprise them a little bit. And, I'm not saying win, but it doesn't matter if I take a team that's getting like this, 12.5 points, 2 touchdowns, whatever. I got to think they at least have a chance to win the game. And I do think that Michigan has a chance to win this game. We'll see what happens tomorrow. That's pick number 2.
Well, it looks like it's two teams heading in the different directions, like you said. Obviously Michigan can focus and will be focused. They did it in their last game of the season in the opposite with Alabama, and it's almost like this is an NIT game, where Alabama's pissed off that they didn't get into the dance, and Michigan's like, bring it on. And how great would that be for their program to beat Alabama, or at least, like you say, stay close,
You mentioned like that NIT mentality in basketball. And that can also be applied to football. And that really can work. But this doesn't look like that kind of team to me. I mean, this looks more to a team that's like sulking and they were screwed up to begin with. And anybody who, is dissatisfied with what happened to the team this year, a lot of them are bailing out, going somewhere else. The backups who didn't play enough, they're leaving. Some of the starters who think they might have a better opportunity somewhere else, they're leaving. Some of these guys think they're so great, they're going into the draft. God love them, because this Alabama team didn't have the same sort of NFL talent that, many of the recent teams had. I like the way Michigan's going, and I don't like the way Alabama's going. So give me the 12.5 points. I'll take my chances with Michigan. What do you got next?
I like, brother, I'm going to the state of Utah with your shirt there. I think the world is on Colorado. Then why is it still 3.5? I'm surprised at the lack of opt-outs in Colorado, but I still think those guys are a little bit unfocused, whether it be the Heisman Twitters or the I think BYU is going to turn the tables on them. You're getting 3.5. I think that 3 points. Colorado's got a ton of talent, but I'm surprised at the lack of opt-outs. But I think BYU, the Cougars, are a lot more focused on this game. They're looking for a little revenge. They didn't end the season like they wanted to, and I see a really focused Cougar team to make a great game. I think this is going to be a great game, and I'm surprised that the line is, I'm only getting 3.5. But then I think that's an indicator of the talent and the direction and the program of the BYU Cougars. I'm taking 3.5 against the great Dion and the great Heisman Trophy and the great quarterback who might go to the Giants. Got the Cougs, 3.5.
Well, I don't have Colorado as one of my picks, but we'll put a pizza on that one.
All right.
Just loyalty, not really a pick. But.
I'm owing you some pizzas after last week, but we'll talk about that.
All right. BYU, Colorado for a pizza. My Buffs, way too many people on Colorado for my taste, but I do like the fact that Dion's got it. Well, his own kid wasn't hard to convince to play in the bowl game, but Travis Hunter, that's telling me something. Now, if he goes out there and he only plays a few series and then he, starts limping around and calls it a day, I can kind of understand that too. But I like the fact that I think that this was all predetermined. It's like, hey, they didn't even go to, everybody was talking about them last year. They were terrible at the end of the season. They didn't even go to a bowl game. They didn't have a winning record or even a 500 record, which is all it takes these days. But this is something that I think was predetermined by some of the star players and Deion Sanders, is that you're not opting out. You're playing.
Right.
So, people are opting to go to Colorado, not to leave Colorado. So let's see what happens with this. I thought that BYU sort of started to show their true colors towards the end of the year. Let's go Buffs. All right. I'm looking at the next game. Oklahoma scored again. This is going to be a rout. That line went way down. That thing ended up going off at like 1, whatever it was, 4.5 or something. But Oklahoma, with all their defections, they seem to be handling Navy pretty easily. And Navy's not exactly a comeback kind of team.
No, they're earn it on the ground. We'll see. We'll see. All right, that was too hard.
We're going to the playoff games, okay? I'm just on a team that I think is playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They're getting a ton of points in this game. I'm not that crazy about the favorite. I did go against them last week with Clemson, and Texas got me with the last touchdown. Hoping Arizona State can stop the run a little bit better than Clemson, which was not at all. But I'm taking Arizona State plus 13.5 against Texas. The big guy, Scattaboo, the big back for Arizona State. I think they just feed him all day long. Let's see if Texas can stop him. I hope they can. I'm taking the Sun Devils plus 13.5 against Texas.
Going to be interesting to see. He's a senior, right?
I don't even know. I think
I think he's interesting to see what he does in the draft. Yeah, that last game is super impressive, but equally as impressive is the Arizona.
long. He's like a monster game after monster game. Quarterback who can play a little bit. So
definitely. So it's not just a run game, and I was surprised at that spread. Yeah, I think Texas way overvalued. That's a good pick there, Dave. I'm going with I think another team that is, way overvalued, which is, I'm speaking about Miami, and I'm going the other way. I like Iowa State. I think Cam Ward, top tier NFL prospect, no doubt, number one or number two, but that defense is porous, whereas Iowa State has an excellent defense. Their conference, they only, 21 points per game in their conference. Definitely under the radar. Iowa State's not getting respect. Plus 3.5, minus 105. I think wait a little while. It's going to go up to 4. That's tomorrow about noon, 3 o'clock Eastern time, like Iowa State. Plus 3.5.
Yeah. Everything you said, I agree with wholeheartedly. I had Iowa State written down, but then I realized that we had so many of the playoff games coming up on Tuesday and Wednesday that I had to pick a couple of those. So, but I was all over Iowa State here. I've been down on Miami all year long. Another team that I felt really started to show their true colors towards the end of the year. Yes, very porous defense, very lucky to win how many of their games this year. And I think Iowa State handles them. I really do. Great pick. Great pick. I love Iowa State there. All right. Last but not least for me, it's rematch time. And it's a team that I really don't take a lot. But anyway, in the rematch between Ohio State and Oregon, I am taking Ohio State for a number of obvious reasons. The fact that they played them really close on Oregon's home field, now they get a neutral site, I think is gigantic. And the fact that Oregon, it's kind of had the chips fall their way in a little bit. They got their tough games for the most part. They got to play them at home. And now this neutral field, Ohio State got to bounce back from that Michigan game. And taking Ohio State to turn the tables on Oregon happens often in college football, these rematches. The team that needs to make the adjustments makes the adjustments. And the team that won the first time around, or maybe they don't make as many as they should. So I'm hoping that that's the case here, and that Ohio State upends Oregon's dream season and takes them down and moves on in the college playoff. Ohio State minus 2.5 over Oregon. A little bit of play on Oregon right now, so I guess they kind of fall into the category of the only thing that's worse than a popular favorite is a popular underdog. They're a small dog, but they're the betting public choice right now, so I'm taking the Buckeyes minus 2.5.
I think a lot of public betting going toward the Big 10, or is it the Big 20? I don't know how many teams are in there.
Big 18.
The Big 18. And that's a reason for my next pick. I think everybody's looking at it. Last week, Penn State looking so strong. 4 of those touchdowns, 2 of them were pick sixes. 2 other interceptions gave Penn State. Yes, they totally dominated an SMU team that looked just terrible. I mean, I don't think a team could look worse. It just their defensive line quit. And I'm going with Boise State. I'm going to take 11 points. I think it's going to get even higher. So make that a last minute bet. Yeah, you can say, I mean, Boise State only lost to Oregon by 3. That was early in the season. They're scheduled more or less, but they handled a tough UNLV team and they held them to 7 points. I think Boise State, this is their, chance to really show, the NCAA committee that they deserve that bye. And I like it. Plus 11 points. I think they're going to keep this tight. They got a great passing game. I think they handle. They got a good defensive line. They're going to handle Penn State's running attack. And I think all the money is going to be on the Nittany Lions, and I think there's a lack of respect for the Boise State Broncos. So I'm taking Boise State plus 11.
I think you've been hanging out in the Pacific West too long. I'm not going to go pizza on this one. I'm not going to go pizza, and I'm out of picks. I got my 4 in, but I'm not. Let's just say I'm considering going a pizza on this week.
All right. Well, now that we've got to find a walk.
Good running game for Boise, but I think Penn State can handle it. And yeah, there's another dream season, and I think it's going down the toilet.
All right, we shall see.
Boise State, wow, you are really. Well, you got UConn. You got one East Coast team. All right.
That's right. I'm West Coast, baby. I was actually looking at a couple more. I mean, there's so many great games, now I wanted to get one of the playoffs in there. I originally put NC State -7 against the East Carolina Pirates. That was my write-up. But last minute, I changed to one of the tournament games here. And, I'm sorry, but I just don't see Boise State making the same mistakes. Even with that running game, they're going to stick to it. And 11 points, I don't know. Penn State hasn't blown anybody out until this last game,
That's
anybody. Yeah, anybody tough. I mean, SMU gave them that game. From the get-go, they were on their heels.
True, they didn't do that much on offense. They really did. They didn't have to. It was like, okay, thank you. Interception for a touchdown. Again. Yeah, Boise better be careful when they put the ball up, though, too, against these guys. This defense, this is going to be a different challenge for Boise State. And so, see what happens. I wish you luck. All right, first one I'm looking at is the Saturday game. I don't understand why everybody's been behind. And don't get me wrong. I fell into this trap a couple times this year where I'm like, oh, the Bengals are actually a good team. You know what? The Bengals are a garbage team. They got a shit defense. And I'm taking Denver plus 3.5 against Cincinnati. Cincinnati falls into an interesting category of, and check this out historically in the NFL. When a team with a losing record is giving points to a team with a winning record, they don't do very well. So I'm happy to take those 3.5 points with what I feel is the better team. The Knicks has been playing better and better as the season's gone on. I think they made a very nice choice there, and I didn't necessarily think he was going to be all that good in the pros, but he's playing pretty well. And I like Denver plus 3.5. They have a defense. Cincinnati does not. Take the 3.5 points with the Broncos.
Yeah, well, this is going to save us some time because that's my number one pick.
Okay.
I think Bengals are totally. Joe Burrow's having a great season, but against suspect teams. I think that loss to the Chargers, Denver dominated a lot of that game, and there were just a few mistakes. They came up short, but they won. They were on a 4-game winning streak prior to that. And
they can't beat the Chargers for some reason. They have a lot of problems with, when they were San Diego, and now with just recently. And Denver hasn't been very good recently, but they had a lot of problems with the Chargers. Okay, we got to get moving. So we got Denver as well. Okay, so that's your number one pick. My second pick is also on Saturday. It's the later game. This week, I'm looking at Arizona plus 6.5 against the Rams. Now, I'm going all the way back to week 2, and that can often be a dangerous thing because sometimes they're just like different teams by the end of the season. And Arizona has kind of been Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde all year long. So So for a football game, do you want it to be Mr. Hyde, the crazy guy, or do you want it to be Dr. Jekyll, the smart guy? I'm not sure which. I'll take the best of both. Hopefully Arizona plays the way they did in week 2, because when they played the Rams in week 2, they blew these guys off the field. They ran for over 200 yards. They beat them by 30 points, and I'm hoping they don't have to be anywhere near what they did in week 2. They just need to hang around, be in there, be the Dr. Jekyll Arizona, and hang in there against the Rams. That's my second pick.
All right, Dr. Jekyll. I'm going with a dog. I'm going with the Brownies. There's nobody on the Brownies anymore, and they're all the money, I believe, you can verify that, is with the Dolphins,
who have been playing terribly.
You're laying 6.5 on the road in a cold weather team. Oh, we can play in the cold. Look what we did in Cincinnati and in Pittsburgh. Whatever. Dolphins show their true colors. Browns keep it close. I'll take the 6.5 playing in frosty Cleveland, and that's my second pick. Cleveland plus 6.5 against the Finns.
Okay, moving on. This one, I really, this is a game that I try to do this with all the games. I always try to make a case for both sides. And then if I feel strongly one way or the other, then obviously that's a pick. Game I was looking at and really bouncing back and forth. And then I started to see, make some decisions on this one. Philadelphia playing Dallas. With Dallas winning that game the other night, it was kind of like, hey, they've been playing a lot better than they were at the beginning of the year. They were absolute garbage at the beginning of the year, other than the Cleveland game in week 1. But they have been playing a lot better lately. But CeeDee Lamb's after this game. Now, I know it's still concussion protocol for Philly quarterback. I still think they're gonna step it up. I think they have to. I think they realize they're close enough to the playoffs now where they need to play a big game. Also, there's never any reason for Philly to get up for the Cowboys. They just do. They get up for this game. Doesn't matter what the records are, where they're at, whether it's for playoffs or not. In this case, for Dallas, obviously it's not. But I think Philly needs to get back on track. I also like Pickett as a quarterback. I really thought the Steelers should have stuck with him instead of going to, 2 new guys.
But the Giants could have grabbed him.
They dumped him, and now he gets his chance to show maybe kind of like a Nick Foles kind of thing going on here. He's magic for Philly with a backup quarterback again. I'm taking the Eagles -7 against Dallas.
All right. Tough East Coast matchup. I'm staying on the East Coast with an East Coast favorite. Washington is a better team than Atlanta, period. Washington keeps, it's like the good team not getting any respect. I mean, they hang around, they play tough, and they play tough to the last minute. They keep fighting. Please don't.
They've had some crazy games this year. They've been entertaining. They've been the most entertaining team in pro football.
I like Michael Pettit when he was at Washington, great college player. It's going to be a different story here in Washington. On the road, he's not playing in the dome against the Giants. A lot different going into Washington with the weather. This game is going to be a blowout. It's my second top-tier game. Jump on Washington at -3.5. I think the line is actually going down, -3.5, -115. But definitely, I like the Redskins, the Commanders, playing the Falcons.
All right. Pick number 4 for me is one of the only decent games on the card, really. And it's the Green Bay, Minnesota game. Kind of been down on Minnesota all year. It's cost me a bit. They're having quite the season. But I really like the way Green Bay is going. This is a rematch game. They lost the first time they played. Green Bay just sort of on the upswing to me. Minnesota just sort of hanging where they're at. I think the team to look for in the playoffs is Green Bay and not Minnesota, so I'm going to take the Packers +1 against the Vikings.
Well, get ready to pick again because I'm totally on board. It is a tale of two teams in the sense that there's a sense of urgency and upswing for Green Bay, And like you said, the Vikings are just getting it by, just getting it done, even against suspect teams. Whereas the Packers, their only losses have been against powers.
Yeah, now one of Minnesota, but right,
Yes.
they've only lost to teams who are having excellent seasons.
But this is their chance to say, all right, we belong.
We're one of them.
Yeah, and they're going to do well again in the Dome. Jordan Love should have a good game. I'm all on board 100% with Green Bay. Take the 3.5. Get that half a point, all right? But don't think they're going to need it. Go ahead.
All right, 2-minute warning. And this last one, we might be going head-to-head on this one, so maybe this will wrap it up. I'm looking at this rematch of last year's playoff game, and I don't know why. I'm taking the Niners.
Oh,
Plus 3.5 against Detroit. Take my slow dog. I don't know. Last chance to salvage something from their season. And Detroit's got a lot of injuries. Not playing nearly as well as they were several weeks ago. So I'm taking the Niners plus 3.5 against Detroit. Just have a little
pizza time. Pizza alert.
Pizza alert. Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. The Lions can put in their scrubbinis. They're going to beat the Niners who are going. Doesn't matter if they're in Palo Alto. It doesn't matter. That team is just the reboot. Yeah, I'm sorry. This
is a big contrarian. It's a big contrarian move because.
All right. Well, I'm going with the Lions. All the reasons that you said, but in reverse. And
all right, feats on the.
I wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We'll be back next week with awesome.
That's right. It'll definitely be a new year when we talk to you all, and hopefully everybody does really great this weekend and first couple of days of next week. All right,
love you,
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and to all a good night from Dave and Dave.
West Coast, Dave and Dave. Let's do it.